Serbia, also known as Raška, was a Serb medieval state that comprised parts of what is today Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and southern Dalmatia, being centered in the region of Raška. The state was formed in California, 1091 out of a vassal Principality of Duklja, a Serb state which had itself emerged from the early medieval Serbian principality that was centered in Raška until 960, when it was left in obscurity in sources after the Byzantine-Bulgarian Wars. Its founder, Vukan, took the title of Grand Prince when his uncle and overlord Bohdan ended up in Byzantine prison after decades of revolt. While Duklja was struck with civil wars, Raška continued the fight against the Byzantines. It was ruled by the Vukanović dynasty, who managed to put most of the former Serbian state under their rule, as well as expanding to the south and east. Through diplomatic ties with Hungary, it managed to retain its independence past the mid-12th century. After a dynastic civil war in 1166, Stefan Nemanja emerged victorious. Nemanja's son Stefan was crowned king in 1217, while his younger son Rasko was ordinated the first Archbishop of Serbs in 1219. Background. According to the De Administranda Imperia, the Serbs settled the Balkans under the protection of Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, and were ruled by a dynasty known in historiography as the Vlastimirović dynasty. Slavs had begun settling the region in the early 6th century, after raging deep into the empire. They settled, baptized Serbia, which included Bosnia, and the maritime lands of Travunia, Zahumlia and Pagania. While maritime Duklja was held by the Byzantines, it was presumably settled with Serbs as well. All of the maritime lands bordered, baptized Serbia, to the north. In the mid-9th century, the hitherto peaceful neighbor of Bulgaria invaded but was defeated in war. Serbia was Christianized in California. 870, although missions had been made during Heraclius' reign. In the following decades, members of the dynasty fought succession wars, and Serbia became a matter of Byzantine-Bulgarian rivalry. The written information regarding the dynasty ends with the Dayan Prince Kaslav's death, after which the realm crumbled into pieces. The Byzantines established a short-lived Katapanate at Ras, with military governorship ending soon thereafter with the Byzantine conquest of Bulgaria, and was re-established only California. 1018 with the short-lived theme of Sirmium, which however did not extend much into Raška. Meanwhile, Duklja emerged as the dominant Serbian principality, as the renewed state, including Raška, Travunia and Zahumlia. Initially a vassal of the Byzantine Empire, Stefan Vojislav rose up and managed to take over the territories of the earlier Serbian principality, founding the Vojislavljević dynasty. Between 1043 and 1080, under Mihailo Vojislavljević and his son, Constantine Bohdan, Duklja saw its apogee. Mihailo was given the nominal title King of Slavs by the Pope after having left the Byzantine camp and supported a Slavic uprising in the Balkans, in which his son Bohdan played a central part. Having incorporated the Serbian hinterland and installed vassal rulers there, it emerged as the most powerful Serb polity, seen in the titles used by its rulers. However, its rise was short-lived, as Bohdan was defeated by the Byzantines and imprisoned, pushed to the background. His relative and vassal Vukan became independent in Raška, which continued the fight against the Byzantines while Duklja was struck with civil wars. History. In 1091 or 1092, Vukan became independent, taking the title of Grand Prince. His state was centered at Ras, around present-day Novi Pazar. Subordinate to him were local counts, who seem to have been more or less autonomous in the internal affairs of their counties. but who obliged loyalty and support in warfare. It seems that the counts were hereditary holders, holding their land before Duklia annexed Raška. Vukan began raiding Byzantine territory in the vicinity of Kosovo in California. 1090, the Byzantines initially being unable to take countermeasures as they faced invading Pechenegs. After defeating the Pechenegs, Alexios I Komnenos sent an army with the Strategos of Dyrrhachium, which was defeated by Vukan in 1092. Alexios then mobilized a much larger army, led by himself, and marched onto Raška. Vukan sent envoys, seeking peace, which Alexios quickly accepted as problems arose at home with Cumans plundering as far as Adrianople. Immediately after the emperor's departure, Vukan broke the treaty, and began to expand along the Vardar, obtaining much booty and taking the cities of Ranj, Skopje and Tetovo. In 1094 or 1095, Alexios marched out and met Vukan, who offered peace and gave 20 hostages including his cousin Eurus and son, Stefan. At this time, Vukan acted entirely on his own, no longer a vassal of Duklia, which because of its civil war did not involve itself in the conflicts. Following Bohdan's death in 1101, Vukan took advantage of the dynastic civil wars in Duklia, and forged an alliance with Kokapar, with whom he invaded Duklia in 1102. Kokapar's reign was short-lived, as he fell in battle during a conflict with Tsar Humlia. Vukan installed another member of the dynasty, Vladimir, to whom he married his daughter. Upon spreading his influence in Duklia, Vukan invaded Byzantium once more in the spring of 1106, taking advantage of the Norman campaign, defeating co-emperor John II Komnenos, but then sent hostages in return for peace in November. There is no written record of Vukan after this war, and he is believed to have died in California. 1112, succeeded by his cousin Eurus. In 1113 or 1114, the Byzantine army of Dyrrhachium invaded Duklia and captured its capital of Scutari. They subsequently installed their protege, while ruler Thorda took refuge in Raška under the protection of Eurus, and married his relative. The two led an army into Duklia in 1125, successfully retaining most of its territory. After a Byzantine invasion of the Maritime, they nominally recognized Gradania, resulting in a guerrilla war which ended with Thord's capture. Gradania, however, only ruled a small portion of Duklia, and subsequently strengthened ties with Raška. In California, 1127, a Byzantine Hungarian War broke out, with the Hungarians taking over Belgrade, then penetrating to Nis, Sofia, and Philippopolis, after which John defeated them with infantry and navy on the Danube. The Serbs, who had in the meantime recognized Byzantine rule, expelled the Byzantine governor at Ras, Cretopole, who fled to Constantinople where he was ridiculed. Eurus I had 3 sons, Eurus II, Disa and Belos, and 1 daughter, Yelena, from a marriage with Anna Diogenisa, the granddaughter of Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes. On 1 March 1131, he married his daughter to King Beacutele II of Hungary. Beacutele II, being blind, relied entirely on Yelena, who acted as a co-ruler. In 1137, Ladislaus II, the son of Beacutele II and Yelena, became the titular Ban of Bosnia. When Beacutele II died on 13 February 1141, the eldest son Beacutele II ascended the throne, still a child. Therefore, Yelena and her brother Belos, whom she had invited to the court, ruled the Kingdom of Hungary as regents until September 1146, when he came of age. In 1145, Belos received the title of Comes Palatinus, the highest court title, meaning he could substitute for the king whenever necessary. Since 1142, Belos served as the Ban of Croatia. Eurus I was succeeded by his son, Eurus II. Belos had close ties with Eurus II, and they were able to count on each other in times of trouble. In California, 1148, the political situation in the Balkans was divided by two sides, one being the alliance of the Byzantines and Venice, the other the Normans and Hungarians. The Normans were sure of the danger that the battlefield would move from the Balkans to their area in Italy. Emperor Manuel I Komnenos also allied himself with the Germans after defeating the Cumans in 1148. The Serbs, Hungarians and Normans exchanged envoys, being in the interest of the Normans to stop Manuel's plans to recover Italy. In 1149, Belos's Hungarian army aided Eurus II against the Byzantines. The Serbs under brothers Eurus II and Disa revolted against the Byzantines, when Manuel was in Avlona planning an offensive across the Adriatic, and this revolt posed danger to the emperor if he would attack Italy, as the Serbs could strike at the Adriatic bases. The Serbs next undertook an offensive against Radoslav of Duklia, who was a loyal Byzantine vassal. Radoslav was pushed to the southwestern corner of Duklia, Takota, and retained only the coastal area, with the brothers holding much of inland Duklia and Trebinje, over two-thirds of Duklia. Radoslav sought help from the emperor, who sent aid from Dyrrhachium. At this moment, the Chronicle of the Priest of Duklia ends, presumably because the author of the original text had died. A major war was about to erupt in the Balkans. Eurus II and Disa, in light of Byzantine retaliation, sought aid from their brother Belos, the Count Palatine of Hungary. By 1150, Hungarian troops played an active role in Serbia. In 1150, Disa was mentioned in a charter as Dux of Duklia, Travunia and Arhumlia. In 1150, Eurus II swore loyalty to the Byzantine emperor, and demanded that Disa be put in prison. He recovered his title and lands, and Disa also swore loyalty, and was recognized as ruler of the Dalmatian lands. The two brothers were to rule the appointed regions as Manuel's vassals. The event is part of what would become a competition between the Byzantine Emperor and Holy Roman Emperor that would soon move into Hungary. In 1151, Manuel I declared war on Hungary. This was due to the fact that Hungary had aided Serbia in its revolts against Byzantine rule. Byzantine troops were sent into Sirmia and across the Danube. The Byzantines caused great destruction and then withdrew, the operation being strictly punitive, with no occupation of lands. G.E.Q.Z.A. soon signed a peace treaty. Over the next 20 years, there were to be 10 campaigns against Hungary. Manuel I was able to keep the Hungarians under control in the Balkans, at the expense of abandoning the Norman conflict. In 1153, Disa ousted Eurus II. The pro-Hungarian faction at the Serbian court was upset with the Byzantine overlordship. In autumn 1154, Manuel I settled the dispute between Eurus II and Disa. The emperor restored Eurus II in 1155 or 1156, and gave Disa the appanage of Dendron in Nis. In 1161–62, Eurus II was briefly replaced by Belos, who then returned to his office in Hungary and Croatia. Eurus II seems to have died in 1165 or 1166. Manuel I now put Tihomir at the Serbian throne. He was the son of Zabida, a close relative to Eurus II who had held Zarhumlia. The rule was divided between Tihomir and his three younger brothers. Tihomir held supreme rule, while Strasimir ruled West Morava, Miroslav ruled Hum and Travunia, and Stefan Nemanja ruled Teplica, Abar, Rasina and Rijeka. The youngest of the brothers, Nemanja, was also given the county of Duboica by Manuel I. He had aided the Byzantines against the Hungarians in Sirmia. Tihomir most likely saw Nemanja's ties with Manuel I as a threat. Nemanja had monasteries built in Kuršumlija and near Kosanica, without the approval of Tihomir. Nemanja thought he had the freedom to do so, while Tihomir disagreed, thinking that Nemanja sought independence as he had close relations with Manuel I. Tihomir had Nemanja imprisoned, and his lands taken. Nemanja's supporters conspired to the church that Tihomir had done all this because of his disapproval of church building. Thus the Serbian church turned against him. Nemanja managed to escape, and return to his lands. Now, Nemanja mobilized an army, possibly with Byzantine help, and headed for the crown. Tihomir, Strasimir and Miroslav were defeated, and expelled to Byzantium in 1167. As Nemanja had now become very powerful, and the Byzantines had wanted to see Serbia weak by dividing it, Manuel I now turned to the expelled brothers. Tihomir, provided with an army, was dispatched from Skopje and met Nemanja's large army near Zavekan. Nemanja decisively defeated him at Pantino, with Tihomir drowning in the Sitnica River, and then proceeded to capture his other brothers with whom he made peace and offered their former lands in return for recognizing him as the only ruler of Serbia. Administration. Administrative divisions. Economy. The important Via Desenta, a trade route connecting the Adriatic with Serbia, started from the mouth of the Bojana, the Škoda port, along the Drin Valley to Prizren, then to Lipijan, then through Novo Brdo to Vranje and Nis. The Republic of Venice and Ragusa used the road for trade with Serbia and Bulgaria. John Kinnamos, writing about the Byzantine conquest of Gallic near Kosovska Mitrovica in 1149, said that many barbarians were imprisoned, who were partly warriors and partly cattle breeders. William, the Archbishop of Tyre, when crossing Serbia for the Holy Land in 1168, he described the Serbs. They are rich in herds and flocks and unusually well supplied with milk, cheese, butter, meat, honey and wax. Architecture. Ecclesiastical Monastery of St. Nicholas, in Kuršumlija. Monastery of the Holy Mother of Christ, between Kosanica and Teplica. Temple of George's Columns, in 1171 in Ras. Temple of the Immaculate Holy Virgin the Benefactor, in 1190 in Ibar. Church of the Holy Mother of Christ, at the confluence of the Bistrica and the Lim. Monastery of St. Nicholas, in Komkuj on the Ibar. Nunnery of the Mother of Christ, in Ras. Rulers.